Welcome back to my channel, everybody. My name is Mykel Ryan, and I am the creator of Mykelmon_regions on Instagram and Twitter, where I share my Fakemon regions, the Ludvik region, inspired by Africa, and the Fyrún region, inspired by Iceland, which I share on my Instagram account at Mykelmon_regions. So if you like the Fakemon featured in today's video, please make sure to go follow me there on Instagram, where I share their full movesets, their shinies, and plenty of other information you cannot find here on my YouTube channel or anywhere else. And of course, please make sure to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube and check out some of my other videos to learn even more about the inspiration, lure, and the creative process behind my Fakemon and their designs. In today's video, I am going to be introducing a lot of brand new Fyrún Pokémon, inspired by, once again, Iceland. These are some really cool Pokemon of various different types. So without further ado, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. The Fyrún region is inspired by Scandinavia and Norse mythology, with the majority of the region's culture, geography, and wildlife resembling that of Iceland. The region features over 115 brand new Pokemon, as well as new regional forms and evolutions for classic Pokemon, and a brand new battle mechanic known as Forge Forms, offering unique magical weapon variations of several fan-favorite Pokemon, as well as the new native Pokemon of the region. The Fyrún region's hypothetical and who knows, maybe one day future fan games would be known as Pokemon Brain and Pokemon Brawn, with its story focusing on duality and division, as you set out on your own Pokemon adventure against your overprotective mother, Professor Aspen's best wishes. As you'd be pitted against your childhood best friend, as you've both been recruited by rival teams, Team Brain and Team Brawn, in the middle of their high-stakes turf war throughout the Fyrún region. As each team is led by one of the Fyrún region's divine Pokemon. Team Brain is led by the trickster Pokemon Ilruz, while Team Brawn is led by the mighty Pokemon Stormer, both trying to reclaim the region as they believe it to be their rightful kingdom. So you and the rest of Team Brain or Team Brawn are merely their pawns, as you'll not only be up against an evil team in this region, but will actually be part of one, working your way up the ranks. I hope you and your starter Pokemon are ready, because the journey through the Fyrún region continues. I'd like to start by introducing what has to be one of the most Icelandic Pokemon found in the Fyrún region that I've posted a while back on Instagram but have yet to introduce on YouTube, the Fyrún Troglogre line. This entire line is made up of regional variants of my Ludvik Pokemon based on cavemen, originally fighting rock types, but now in the Fyrún region they are grass rock types, as they now take inspiration from Icelandic trolls. The grass rock typing is not only an amazing typing, but a reference to the fact that Icelandic trolls are known to live in the hills, caves, or grottos of Iceland. First, we have Fyrún Primitot. Becoming one with the flourishing plant life within the Fyrún region, they live a peaceful life in the region's mountains and caves. They pass time stacking stones to help wandering travelers find their way. Many of these stones turn out to be wild Palbble. Fyrún Primitot evolves into Fyrún Grottroll. These jolly Pokemon roam the grassy hills of the Fyrún region, looking to aid other wild Pokemon however possible. They were once rumored to turn to stone during the daytime, but they actually flourish in the sunlight. Fyrún Grottroll evolves once more into Fyrún Troglogre. Despite their feeble appearance, Fyrún Troglogre are just as strong as they are wise. Overgrown with plant life, these gentle giants protect the Fyrún region's grottos. Fun fact, Fyrún Troglogre was even the very first Fakemon I got artwork commissioned for the Fyrún region, and was teased on Instagram alongside the Valkyrie-inspired Fyrún Frigilith almost a year before I actually posted them. I was only midway through Ludvik at the time. It's also interesting to point out that I often work my 3-stage Pokemon backwards, and by that I mean I usually start with the artworks for the final stage before doing the earlier stages, as I find it easier to do so, because the final stage is usually the fully realized concept or final destination for that design, so going backwards is more so just filling in the blanks and showing what led up to this design. These Pokemon, of course, can be found in the rocky and grassy locations of the Fyrún region, usually in their hilly areas or within its grottos and caves. Another rock type that can be found in a lot of the same areas as this line is Palbble, as the two lines are often found around one another as Primitot's dex entry suggested. On their own, Palbble are very weak, is by gathering its friends and stacking on top of one another, they are able to form a Goliath of a Pokemon. Palble's name is a play on Pal, because it's kind of like a pet rock, and it calls upon its friends, and Pebble. This cute little stacking stone Pokemon is a single stage and monotype. It is meant to resemble stone Karens, which is pretty much just a fancy word for stacking stones, as stacking stones and making stone Karens is a long-standing tradition in Iceland, started by Viking settlers to help guide the way through unknown territory, as they were still learning their way around. These stone Karens can be found throughout Iceland, coming in all shapes and sizes, having acted as beacons for travelers to this very day. In fact, it is very frowned upon when tourists in Iceland make stone Karens and stack stones because it can confuse people, as they really are still meant to help guide others. Given how important these stone Karens are to Iceland, I just felt I had to make a rock-type Pokemon around this concept, but having seen it done so many times before throughout the Fakemon community, I was a little hesitant and determined to make mine stand out and execute it in a totally unique way. So to do so, I decided to make it look like a Wishy-Washy-like Pokemon with a new ability called Stacking. That works just like Wishy-Washy's schooling ability, allowing several Palbble to stack together to form a Golem-esque rock monster, as its dex entry stated, which like Wishy-Washy is meant to go from a small fry to an absolute intimidating monster of a Pokemon. This golem-like design is also fitting of both Icelandic and Norse mythology, as they are featured in a lot of these stories, which makes me love this concept even more for the Fyrún region. There's even an area in the Fyrún region, by the way, full of stone Karens, which is the easiest place to capture this Pokemon, of course, as some of these stone Karens will even be Palbble in disguise, standing still almost how Sudowoodo would disguise itself as a tree in the earlier games. This design took several edits, especially in its stacked form, as getting its shape, colors, and various other design features just right in order to have it appear to be made up of a stack of several smaller solo Palbbles took a lot of trial and error. By this I meant incorporating oval-like shapes into the design, properly balancing the colors throughout the composition, and having what appears to be little white eyes throughout the composition as well. So thank you so much, artist Pokejamon, for being so patient with me on this design. I feel like we succeeded in the end, and I am so happy with how it turned out. So, now that you've met Palbble, I'd like to take a look at another single-stage Pokemon I just couldn't resist doing in an Icelandic-inspired region. Bug-type Resognat. Its name being a play on resonate, as in to produce or be filled with a deep or full reverberating sound, and gnat, as the Icelandic Midge it is based on is a species of noisy gnats. So in true Pokemon fashion, I decided to play this noisy quality up and make it even more musical. Resognat are often found by lakes or rivers where they serenade wild Pokemon with their marvelous melodies. Although some Pokemon trainers find these noisy Pokemon to be a nuisance, especially in larger qualities. Iceland actually doesn't have a lot of insects, but all the new bug Pokemon I added are native to Iceland, with only one exception, which I'll introduce later on in this video actually. The Midge species, however, is not only one of the few insect species native to Iceland, but just as iconic in Iceland as some of its other animals like sheep, whales, and the puffin. It also slightly resembles a mosquito, which midges are often mistaken for, which is actually kind of a running joke in Iceland, as it's one of the few places in the world fortunate enough not to have mosquitoes. So I like to think of its more mosquito-like qualities, like its longer nose or stinger, as a fun little nod to that, as a lot of Pokemon mix different qualities from different animals together. And these ones honestly already look pretty similar. As I already mentioned, midges are very noisy gnats, so I wanted to expand upon this trait and make them even more musical, as I'm sure you can tell looking at its design, which features several musical qualities, including musical notes, for its arms, legs, and antennas. I wanted to do something different though, and decided to give it a body resembling a bagpipe, which are musical instruments native to Scotland, but has seen widespread recognition and usage throughout Europe, including in some Scandinavian countries. I don't know why, but when trying to add more musical qualities to the Midge, I instantly imagined a bagpipe and a trumpet-like singer or mouthpiece. Literally just came to me the moment I saw the species. And honestly, that's how it often happens to me when creating a Fakemon, and in which case I just run with it, do further research, and try to figure out how to expand upon that concept and effectively feature these qualities in its design. But I figured having it have a bagpipe-like body would give the Pokemon even more personality and really make it stand out in a fun way. It's a normal type because most sound-based moves or Pokemon are already given the normal typing. So because of that, I have always associated the normal typing with sound or music. This is something I've doubled down on in the representation of music-based Pokemon in my own Fakemon regions, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, as I am adamant about not adding or making up new types for my Fakemon regions. I just really don't like new types. Emphasis on my Fakemon regions though. I have absolutely no problem with other Fakemon creators who make new types, and think many of them even have done it pretty well. I just personally don't think it's necessary, as the type matchups are convoluted and confusing enough as it is, without me expecting my followers, especially new ones, to memorize the strengths and weaknesses of my own new types. I feel the sound type especially isn't needed for the reasons I already stated, as once again most sound-based moves and Pokemon are already normal types, and a lot of the ones that aren't already have two typings, or a signature sound-based move of another type. So to make a new sound type altogether would mean having to change all of that. So Pokemon like Toxtricity, Noivern, or the types of all sound-based moves would have to be changed to accommodate that, which would just be super messy, and why I think sound type being its own subclass of moves just works so much better. I'd normally transition from here saying I'm sorry for the tangent, but to be honest, I'm really not. Look, I know I talk a lot and no one hates the sound of my voice more than I do, but that's kind of why I'm here on this platform, to not only explore more of the lure and inspiration behind my Fakemon designs, but my creative and thought process as well, as I can't really do so on Instagram, which is more picture driven. But this YouTube channel is meant to offer a deeper dive into the overall story of my regions and my creative process, especially as I know a lot of you in the community are constantly trying to pick my brain or ask me for advice on how to make a Fakemon or Fakemon region. So I really only go into these tangents to help offer some insight that I hope may help some of you in your own creative endeavors, as the things I normally go on about are things I feel like most Fakemon creators or even Pokemon fans overlook. And for me personally, it's these small details that instantly makes a Fakemon come across as, well, fake to me, if I'm being honest, versus some that I think actually look like real Pokemon, which is what I always strive for my own Fakemon designs. I can't say it enough, the devil is in the details. Making a believable Fakemon is about a lot more than just getting the Sigimori style down correct. It's like cooking. There's plenty of ingredients to make the perfect recipe that you gotta get just right, which can be very difficult, a lot more than I think people realize. Which is why I always go look back at real Pokemon and how the Pokemon Company has done things in the past, as I've always studied that and used it as a blueprint to help me make my own Fakemon or Fakemon regions. Anyways, I just love this little doot bug, and since single stage Pokemon are often given a bad rep, I always try to add some sort of unique gimmick, move, or ability to mine to help make them feel more useful. In Resognat's case, I did so with its signature ability Pitch Perfect, which gives sound-based moves priority. Yes, that would be very useful, which especially given it has high special attack and speed, as well as Quiver Dance, Boom Burst, and Bug Buzz at its disposal, meaning that both Bug Buzz and Boom Burst would have priority stab. Of course, being a single stage Pokemon and a bug type at that, it's not enough to really make it broken, but more so a strong addition to any trainer's team. Resognat can be found all throughout the Fyrún region, but being it's a pest, it's not exactly rare. But it's more common and easier to find around the region's lakes and rivers, as that's where midges usually swarm in Iceland. Another bug-type Pokemon found in the Fyrún region is the bug-fighting type Termite, which I'm sure you probably guessed is based on a small but mighty termite. Termite's larger muscular set of pincers are used to pound its food to a pulp, making it easier to chew. Termites actually aren't found in Iceland, but are found throughout European countries with similar weather conditions and biomes, so I felt it would fit in with those of the Fyrún region, as I needed to get a little creative to add a decent number of bug types for obvious balancing reasons, as you can't have a Pokemon region or game without a fair representation of each type. So I took a few liberties and added bug types from previous generations, I felt fit the region's biomes or themes. And honestly, when looking at insects I could incorporate into the Fyrún region, the name Termite paired with the fighting typing just came to me. I liked it so much I just had to stick with it, and it also fit the themes of Pokemon Brain and Pokemon Brawn perfectly. Termite evolves into Musclehead Fistmite, its name being a play on fist fight and might, as it looks like it's ready to throw down or steal your lunch money. It's very subtle, but if you look closely at its design, its pincers also resemble flexing biceps, much like termites do. Fistmite are often found lifting fallen trees and other large objects twice their size in order to further hone its muscular body. Fistmite often get into fistfights with other members of its colony, and Fistmite evolves once more into the intimidating Exterminite. These strong Pokemon are said to be able to lift as much as a Machamp, and capable of going head-to-head with one in battle as well. Its name, Exterminite, is a play on Exterminator, Exterminate, and of course Termite once again. I am very proud of this entire line's names, and I obviously love their designs too, but that being said, I will admit there was a brief period of time where I contemplated scrapping them. Only because I was worried it would be compared to Ultra Beast Buzzwole, because it's a beefed out, reddish bug fighting type. I put the two side by side and came to the realization that they really don't look all that alike. Sure, there's similarities, but there are plenty more Pokemon that look far more similar. So at the end of the day, I decided that didn't matter. And to be honest, I worked really hard with artist Pokejamon, who I commissioned for these artworks, to make sure that there's plenty of differences with the Buzzwole design from the get-go anyways. Because that, once again, was one of my fears before going into the design. I literally tested out over 30 color combinations within Procreate to come up with the one I felt was just right. Although I knew the comparisons would be drawn, I felt this line's colors needed to be red and brown to not only represent muscles fitting of its fighting type, but of course termites as well. And no, I know what you're probably thinking, it is not a Pokemon Brawn exclusive. I already have a handful of exclusive psychic or fighting types, respectively for both versions, but obviously each game needs plenty of the opposite type in order to represent each type. I can't have all the fighting types in Pokemon Brain and all the psychic types in Pokemon Brawn. That just wouldn't make sense. Given its dex entry, I'm sure it's clear I took some slight inspiration from Machamp, as it's a 3-stage fighting type. I wanted it to be like the Machamp or Conkeldurr of the region. I figured since bugs, aka termites, have many arms and legs already, that could be a fun little callback to the Machamp line. The same role my previously mentioned Troglogre, at least the original version, was meant to fit in the Loika region. To further reference this, Exterminite and Troglogre, both the Loican and Fyrinian variants, even share the same evolution method as Machamp and Exterminite, only evolving through trade. That being said, Termite and Fistmite, however, can be found throughout the Fyrún region's forests or in the fields of the Loaford farmlands, as it is mentioned that a lot of the wild Pokemon help the farmers keep up with the crops there. So I can totally see both Termite and Fistmite using their strength to help the farmers lift heavy equipment and such. Exterminite even has a forge form being a bulky hammer of the Wrecker type you can literally exterminate your foes with by squashing them like a bug. Next, I'd like to introduce the two Fyrún Pokemon lines I know a lot of you have been dying to see, as I've been teasing them on my Instagram or in my videos for almost a year now. Both being found most commonly, but not exclusively, in the Rainbow Woodlands alongside the Elfay and Draseed lines, based on the elusive and invisible Icelandic elves, and the World Seed and World Tree from Norse mythology. After fully evolving, both of which end up getting forge forms and are even the aces of two of the Fyrún gym leaders, Ludvik and Birkir. So to learn more about these two evolutionary lines and gym leaders, make sure to check out my latest holiday video in which they were introduced. Anyways, I've kept you waiting long enough, let's take a look at these two Pokemon lines, starting with the Grass Psychic type, Sporcerer. Inspired by the fungi species, aka mushrooms, found within Iceland, and sorcerers, as Iceland and Norse mythology are both known for their magical creatures and tales. As I've covered in some of my previous videos, Iceland even has its own museum dedicated to Iceland's rich history with magic. Sporcerer only come out at night, using their magical spores to cast spells on those they feel threatened by. Its purple coloring is to resemble the night sky, filled with stars, kind of like a wizard hat, It is also fitting of its psychic typing, which is often associated with magic or sleep in Pokemon, both of which playing a huge role in this line's concept and design, as well as its moveset. At one point I debated making it a poison type, as that could fit its purple coloring and a fungi, but decided against it and to stick with the grass typing, as all mushroom related Pokemon are all grass types. So I really wanted to stick with that. I also wanted Sporcerer to look like a little wizard, as I mentioned, with its mushroom cap resembling a wizard's hat, although this stage is more so meant to represent a sorcerer's apprentice and a young wizard still growing into its magical abilities. So I wanted it to look rather small and innocent, but also kind of derpy, hence the Squidward nose. It learns a lot of magic and sleep-based moves using its spores to enchant its enemies, as its dex entry states, so its spores are the source of its spells and magic. But being as it's still a young and inexperienced wizard, a lot of its spells backfire. Only at night does Sporcerer evolve into the magical and marvelous Enchanterele. Enchanterele are able to enchant an entire forest with their magical spores, awakening the Rainbow Woodland's true beauty in the dark of night. Its name is a combination of enchanted or enchantment and Chanterelle, which is a common name of several species of fungi. Like its predecessor, it's meant to look like a sorcerer or wizard, furthering that concept as its pointier mushroom cap now resembles a wizard's hat even more, maintaining the same color palette and starry night sky motif from its first stage. It also looks a lot wiser and more experienced, resembling the most common depiction of a wizard I'm sure we're all familiar with a long, derpy fungus-like beard and robe. Being as its concept is magic-based, this Pokemon is a strong special attacker, and will even be used by some members of Team Brain. Whereas Breloom, being a fighting-type mushroom Pokemon, almost as its counterpart, would be used by some members of Team Brawn. But once again, despite this, the Sporcerer line is not a Pokemon Brain exclusive, and like the Termite line, can be found in both versions. The Sporcerer line can only be found at night, and only in the region's grassy or wooded areas, with the exception of the Rainbow Woodlands, where they can easily be found at any time of day, alongside a bunch of other magical Pokemon. Last but not least, we have the Fyrún Pokémon I know a lot of you have anticipated the most, or at least have asked about non-stop. A lot of you have even guessed its inspiration from Norse mythology just looking at its design, or asking if I'd be making a Pokemon off this concept. So, the answer is yes, and I am happy to introduce Squirrel, a normal psychic type taking inspiration from the messenger squirrel that climbed the world tree from Norse mythology. It's said if you whisper a message into Squirrel's ear, it will be magically engraved on its scroll-like tail until it is able to deliver it for you. Squirrel is a normal type because squirrels are pretty common creatures worldwide. Even the red squirrel I based its design and coloring off of, while found in Iceland, is quite common throughout Europe. Not to mention the normal psychic typing is actually a surprisingly good type combination. I also felt I could use more normal type representation in the Fyrún region's Pokedex as well. As I've mentioned earlier in this video, creating a Fakemon region is a balancing act. There's a lot of things to consider, representing a fair number of single stage, 2-stage, 3-stage, or dual type or monotype Pokemon, etc. Are just a couple of examples of the many things I try to take into consideration when making my Fakemon regions, as well as my Fakemon designs, to help fill out those regions. It's part psychic type because it's got some subtle, fantastical, or magical qualities to it, especially with the runes on its tail, and once again because psychic type is often associated with magic in Pokemon, and because the psychic type often represents knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment as well. And given its inspiration from Norse mythology being it was a messenger squirrel, its tail is a literal scroll, or at least resembles or functions like one, as it's able to roll it up and unfold it, with glowing Norse runes running down it, full of magical secrets as its dex entry states, which I thought fit the concept quite nicely and really added to the design. Its scroll-like tail and role as a messenger is also where its name, Squirrel, comes from, a combination of squirrel and scroll. Squirrel evolves into Ratatoskroll. Ratatoskroll often find refuge in Yggdrasil's branches, as the two Pokemon often form a beneficial partnership, as it being more nimble helps to gather food and other resources in exchange for shelter. It has the same color palette as its pre-evolution Squirrel, but reverses its colors, as I personally like it when Pokemon evolutions change up the color patterns. Which many do, by the way, something that many Fakemon creators, even myself, often forget. So I thought this was a good opportunity to do so. And I try to remember to incorporate that into a handful of my Fakemon lines and their designs every now and then, just for some variety. Its name and design, once again taking inspiration from the squirrel from Norse mythology, and playing up that connection even more, including its squirrel-like tail, with the glowing runes being a lot bigger in almost every way, and giving it more of a scholarly look, with subtle design features like its arm drapings and a more poised pose. The new green coloring is to play up its connection to the world tree without giving it the grass typing, as I have far too many grass types, and as you know, a grass psychic type already with the Sporcerer line. And once again, as I admitted, I needed another normal type for my Pokedex. I had originally given it a horn to further resemble Ratatoskroll, but decided to scrap it because at the time I already had quite a bit of horned Pokemon for the Fyrún region, some of which I can't actually show you yet because they haven't been revealed, and I felt it really took away from the design, making it feel kind of cluttered, as there's already so much going on in the design with the various colors, shapes, and various other features that I felt already conveyed its concept and made it clear what it was inspired by without actually having to look just like Ratatoskroll. Whereas when making a Fakemon design, I always want one key feature to stand out, in this case being its scroll-like tail, which I feel is a lot more original and more Pokemon-esque. So having the unicorn horn just kind of drew focus and took away from that in my opinion. Plus, being it's a special attacker, none of the horn moves like Horn Attack, Horn Drill, or Mega Horn being physical moves would have done it really any good anyways. And I would have felt inclined to add them to its moveset if I'm being honest. Speaking of its moveset, after evolving it even gains a signature psychic type move called Enlightenment that deals damage equal to the difference between the user and the target's special attack stats, implying that knowledge really is power as it literally schools its foe, fitting of its more scholarly concept and design. If you haven't noticed by now, I am quite OCD about all the little details. Anyone who knows me or who has worked with me will tell you I am a perfectionist and obsess and fixate on the tiniest of details. It's actually kind of a problem. I have ADHD and a couple other learning disabilities and mental health issues that probably contribute to that as well, but I'm not going to get into those. I see it as both a gift and a curse if I'm being honest, at least as far as my Fakemon and character designs go. But I really do believe the devil is in the details, so I've just learned to embrace it over time, as taxing as it can be on my mental health at times. Speaking of which, I actually originally commissioned the Squirrel line with my bestie, the talented trainer Mats. While I clearly absolutely love Mats' artwork, I felt like their poses, while more dynamic, didn't really fit the scholarly vibe I was going for, and decided to redesign them altogether to incorporate those qualities more, not only into its pose, but the rest of its design. So I commissioned another good artist friend of mine, Fungus Fakemon, to do the redesign only because Mats was busy at the time, and Fungus actually reached out to me at the time to see if I needed any artwork done. I love you, Fungus, and I'm really pleased with how the final product turned out. I hope you all are as well. The Squirrel line can be found throughout the Fyrún region in various different biomes, but more commonly in its grassy and wooded areas, but mirrors Sporcerer in the sense that it's only found at the daytime. Once again, with the exception of the Rainbow Woodlands, it is most commonly found in, no matter the time of day, alongside plenty of other magical Pokemon. With the exception of the Fyrinian Troglogre line being a regional variant of the modern-day Fyrún region, all of these Pokemon introduced in this video can be found in the ancient version of the Fyrún region known as the Cedar region, aka in the Fyrún region's own Pokemon Legends game, Pokemon Legends Realmdale, which I have devoted an entire in-depth feature-length video to on my channel months ago if you'd like to check it out and learn more. It's one of my favorite videos and concepts to date, so I highly recommend it. It's also my best received here on YouTube so far. I even have another massive Pokemon Legends video for my African-inspired Fakemon region, the Ludvik region, in the works, known as Pokemon Legends Elamage, and it will be even bigger and better in almost every way, I promise. I can't wait to share it with all of you. I'm so proud, not only of the project's designs, but of its story. So please stay tuned for that. Well, that is it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it and these Fakemon. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. hit that notification bell for more content. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel. It's finally growing, and I'm really excited to see that happening. And leave a comment down below. Reading your comments always makes my day. There is nothing more exhilarating than seeing that notification and seeing what my fellow Pokemon fans or Fakemon fanatics have to say. So thank you all so much. Also, please make sure to go follow and support all the incredible artists that I commission to bring all of these Fakemon arts to life. They're all so talented, they deserve your support, and a lot of them even have their own Fakemon and Fakemon regions that I suggest checking out as well. So all of their names will be in the bio below, so please make sure to check that out. Thank you to all of the artists. I appreciate all your support, of course. Anyways, I have a lot of exciting projects coming up, and even more Fyrún related videos with some of my best Fakemon yet, so please stay tuned for all of that.